If you're talking about it, we're talking about it. Chicago's talk station, 890 AM WLS.
Stepping in the studio, David Brenner. One of the funniest men alive.
Legendary.
So here, anything happened the last couple of years? Everything good? Everything's fine? All's
Absolutely
working?
nothing's happened in my life. I have nothing really to talk about. No, everything's great. Yeah, and I want you to know, you're doing something for the web. I want you to know that I'm going to be launching in the new year a website, a comedy website, and it's really beamed to the 45 and up, the boomers, who have no media attention whatsoever. They're the forgotten generation when it comes to media because they don't switch products. You ever notice that?
Yeah.
And it's true.
Very loyal.
Like Dial soap, they'll use it their whole lives. No, I always use Dial. They don't care, if it's infected. They're going to use Dial. So the sponsors don't. They say we're not going to change their mind. So they're not going. Why should we advertise to them? So they're ignored. Well, this isn't fair.
Yeah.
So we're going to, with the internet, we can do. So on the internet, and Joe Bronzi here is playing one of the most important parts in it. And we have so far for just the so-called presentation thing we're doing, we have Rita Rudner, George Wallace. Bobby Slayton.
It's a whole Vegas thing happening here.
Richard Lewis, Steve Landsberg, Pat Cooper, Charlie Fleischer, all doing bits for this.
It's a good lineup.
Yeah. And we're going to have all the comedy stars doing it.
Now, David, where do I find this web
it's
that
very
everybody
simple.
talks about?
It's always www. Why do we say that? Everyone knows that.
Yes, we don't have to say it anymore.
Yeah, we don't say it anymore.
Right.
It's Funny Deli, FUNNY. No, like play on words, funny PH, funny.
Yeah.
Funny Deli, DELI Deli, and of course, .com.
Right.
David, you went your whole career. You were, you were one of the hottest comics working anywhere, and you weren't in the tabloids. Then later on in life, you started dating Ty Babylonia, and now you're in the tabloids.
Well, I was in the tabloids before, but what I used to do, because I'm dating an Olympian.
Yeah.
But what I used to do is I would they jump out of the bushes, and in the Studio 54, and I would always introduce, say, who's this? And I would say, this is Princess Rella Godena from Romania. And how do you spell that? And I spelled it. It was in all the tabloids with these princes' names, And actually, it was a model from New York.
Really? It's Judy Goldblatt from the Bronx.
Yeah, right, exactly. I always introduce them as princess. It was always a princess, No, I've been in the tabloid. I lead a pretty non-show business life. That's what it is, yeah. And besides, I don't want to curse anybody out because I don't like rehab. I don't want to put anyone down because I don't want to go to rehab.
Yeah, never. He and Amy Winehouse are in that same boat.
I don't want to go to rehab. No, I don't want to.
Seems like a waste of a good month. Doesn't it?
It is. Give you another reison to get stoned.
I thought there was actually a moment in my career I thought it would be a good career move to end up at Promises or at one of the big the Cirque du Soleil Lodge or whatever it is that they've got that they all go to, because you never know who you're going to meet. You might meet an important agent. You might meet a good like a starlet.
Well, they do that. When I was reading when the fires broke out in Malibu, they had down there Natai. She lives in L.A. She's from L.A. And she loves Los Angeles, and that's not my city at all, to put it mildly. So I read the headline. Malibu fires rage. Houses threatened. Barbara Streisand, Mel Gibson, the Jew hater. Mel Gibson, and this one and that one. And 17 rehabilitation centers in a town a little bigger than this station.
How can that be?
And I just took it, I copied it, and I sent it to her, and I said, my kind of place. So who else can we attack?
we have a full hour. We have a lot of people to attack.
You're not curious about the penny. All right,
wait, no, hold on. I forgot the question. Wait, now hold on. You
don't care about
be
the
fair. Right as David was walking in, he goes, he has this incredible story about a penny. I said,
wait, say incredible. Don't oversell it. That's like, here he is, the funniest guy you ever heard. Never misses. Every line is hysterical, and welcome to the stage. And you don't come out when they do that. That's the same thing. Don't say it's incredible.
I had a mildly interesting story.
Mildly,
kind of boring story about a penny.
No, it wasn't boring. It's mildly interesting. I'd say mildly interesting story about the penny, because the penny's in the news. They're trying to get rid of it again.
Yeah.
And it is considered to be the best designed coin in history.
Yeah.
It is the best design coin. Now I'll tell you an inch. Now I said it was connected to me personally. The thing of getting rid of the penny because it cost 1.7 cents to produce a 1 cent penny. So it's not good business.
Right, it's upside down.
You saw in the paper today you're going to melt down, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the first penny was in 1909. And underneath the date, you'll see, and in the back, there are little initials. And they'll have, like under the date is an S, a D, or nothing. Nothing is for Philadelphia, not symbolically, but they were the main mint. Then there's Denver Mint and San Francisco Mint.
Yeah.
Then there's a 1909 San Francisco DVB, which is worth a lot of money. All right? The DVB is the designer, his initials of the penny. He designed it.
He personally signed it?
And he signed it. He was from Lithuania, and his name was Victor David Brenner. And I am a descendant of Victor David Brenner. Then in 1910, they took his initials, they made them smaller, and then they took him off the penny completely.
So 1 year he was on the penny.
He was on there 1 year, and a couple months later, some others got out. Now, the reason they did that is because they found out he was Jewish. That's the real story. And the anti-Jewish, movement at that time, they said, "Oh, come on, get it off the penny."
Really?
Yeah.
And
now,
if only his media people had thought to set his house on fire.
Yeah, right. He lived
More
in
people would
Malibu.
know
He had a
the
rehab
story.
center.
Actually,
he actually ran a rehab center.
The truth is Mel Gibson did set his house on fire. Mel Gibson drove by the house and said, "That's the penny guy, right?"
Yeah, that's the guy.
He had
The
a few
penny.
vodkas and goes, "That's the penny guy. That's it.
Right.
We've had enough of that."
So that's the true story of the penny.
Really?
Yeah.
That is very
Abraham
interesting.
Lincoln penny. Now, I told you it was mildly interesting, right?
Yes, I
lived up to the billing.
And it was connected to
Funny?
me.
No. Mildly
Did I
interesting?
say
Yes.
funny?
No, I said funny.
You said funny. That's
My
why
mistake.
I stopped you. You want a funny story? I'll tell you a funny story. That's not one of my funny stories. But that was a story connected to me.
David Brenner's in the studio. Joe Bronzi's with him. Joe is the comedian opening for David. And I won't say he's a very funny man because I don't want to set people up for this. But I think he's one of the
He's very
funniest men I've ever met.
Joe is a very funny man.
That's right. There you
I
go.
am very
Joe
funny.
is
Thank you
see?
for pointing that out.
And Joe thinks I'm funny. Right, Joe?
I think you're hilarious.
I think that both of you guys are really funny guys,
Oh, now you did it.
And the guy with the camera, he's
Also funny.
He's very funny. He doesn't talk, but
No.
you can tell. Just looking at him, he's a funny.
got something.
He's got something going for him. He's got a funny guy.
I was telling you, David, the first joke I ever heard you do about 1971, you told a story about somebody recognizing you on a subway and telling you how funny you are.
Yeah, well, what it was right after the Tonight Show. I was going out to Brooklyn, see a friend of mine, Sheepshead Bay. And I was thinking about, being on the Tonight Show, what a thrill and all that. And I'm sitting in the car, it's crowded. And a guy, it's a true story, a guy is sitting diagonally, and he kept gawking at me, looking at me. And all of a sudden, the guy pointed at me and went, "Oh, you're funny," real loud. And I said, "Oh, thank you," real loud, because I was
He
proud.
recognized
I
you.
mean, what are the odds? Come on. He saw me the night before on the Tonight Show, and he recognized me on the subway.
Yep.
And about 3 or 4 minutes later, he turned this old lady sitting next to me, and he said to her, "Oh, you're funny." And it was a lunatic. And he said it to everyone coming in or leaving the car. And I was the only idiot.
You
I
acknowledged
I
it.
stood up and said, "Oh, thank you very much." I took a little bow. Now, I'll tell you something even stranger. They have passed a law in Los Angeles. Schwarzenegger signed the bill that from now on, it is a crime to have sex with a dead body. Now, you know what's frightening? They had to pass a law. That's frightening. It's like, Jimmy, put him down. Didn't you hear about it? No, Jimmy, put him down. Right? Isn't that? That's how sick they are out there. And dogs can get married. You can legally marry in Los Angeles. You can marry a dog with someone else's dog. No, really.
This is good news for Liz
legal.
Taylor.
No, I'm serious. I guess when they get divorced, the bitch gets the house. But really. But really.
David Brenner.
The Roe Conn Show on 890 AM WLS.